The strangest thing about people who talk to themselves is that psychologists have been quietly studying them for almost 100 years. And what they found is not what you think. It is not a sign of loneliness. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. In fact, some of the sharpest minds in psychology believe the opposite, that this one habit might be one of the clearest signs of a highly developed mind. So, if you have ever caught yourself talking out loud when no one else was in the room, stay with me because by the end of this, you're going to see that moment completely differently. Let's start with where it comes from. Back in the 1930s, a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky noticed something odd about children. Watch a toddler stacking blocks and you will hear them narrate everything. This one goes here. No, that's wrong. Try again. Vygotsky called this private speech, and his theory was simple but powerful. Children are not just making noise, they are using language to guide their own actions, before they are even fully aware they are doing it. And here is the part that matters for us as adults. Vygotsky believed that speech never actually goes away, it just goes quiet, it moves inward, and becomes the inner voice that narrates your entire life. Silently, almost constantly, some people, though, never fully internalized it, or maybe they just never stopped letting it out, and it turns out that is not a flaw, it might be an advantage. The first thing self-talk seems to sharpen is thinking itself. There is a well-documented phenomenon in learning psychology, called the self-explanation effect. Put simply, when you explain something out loud, even to no one, your brain processes it differently than when you just think about it silently. Vague ideas have to become specific words, and specific words expose gaps that vague ideas can hide. This is why engineers talk to themselves at whiteboards, why chess players mutter through their moves, why you might explain a problem out loud to an empty room, and suddenly go, "Oh, I see it now." Speaking forces clarity, and clarity is where solutions live. The second thing it seems to do is steady the emotions. There is a psychologist at the University of Michigan, Ethan Kross, who has spent a large part of his career studying the voice inside our heads. And one of his most well-known findings involves something almost too simple to believe. He found that when people talk to themselves using their own name or the word you instead of I, something shifts, saying "you have got this" instead of "I have got this" creates just enough psychological distance to change how the brain processes stress. In his studies, people who used this kind of language before a difficult task felt calmer, performed better, and recovered faster afterward. It is a small linguistic trick with a big effect. It turns you from someone drowning in a feeling into someone standing just outside it, calm enough to help. The third thing worth mentioning is focus. We tend to picture deep focus as silent, head down, mouth shut, but there is research suggesting the opposite can be true. In studies where people were asked to find a specific object in a cluttered image, simply saying the object's name out loud made them faster at finding it. The spoken words seemed to sharpen attention, almost like it gave the brain a target to lock onto. It is the same reason you might say keys, wallet, phone under your breath before leaving the house, or talk yourself through a recipe step by step. It is not nervous mumbling, it is your own voice, quietly keeping you on task. And maybe the deepest thread running through all of this is reflection. People who regularly think out loud tend to also be people who regularly examine themselves. They do not just feel something and move on. They ask why. They do not just make a decision. They talk it through first, out loud, with the one person who actually knows all the context, themselves. There is something almost old-fashioned about that. In a world that hands us an opinion the second we open our phones, sitting with your own reasoning, testing it, questioning it, trusting it only once it holds up, is quietly becoming rare. So where does that leave us? Maybe the voice in the empty room was never something to be embarrassed about. Maybe it is just thinking, caught in the act. A mind working something out in real time, refusing to let a thought stay half-formed. The next time you catch yourself mid-sentence, alone, talking to no one, You do not have to look around to see if anyone heard. You can just let it happen. It might be one of the most useful habits your mind has quietly been running the whole time. So, do you talk to yourself when no one is around? Tell me in the comments. I would genuinely like to know.